Welcome back to another video, guys. Today I want to talk about the huge influx of defenders that has come to the game recently, and how Kabam just keeps pushing out more and more and more defenders, and how I personally think it's not the worst thing that could happen to the game, but it could very well turn into a nightmare for the game in general. For most people, it already is, but I think that we're not at a point where it's too bad yet. First off, let's just look at the 2024 champions, right? We started off incredibly strong with Bullseye, as he's still one of the most meta relevant defenders. I doubt that'll ever go away just because of the way that his evade works, how quickly he gets it, the pretty much almost undexable special one, which therefore means damage, almost guaranteed damage into the block. Right now, Bullseye on his own wasn't too bad, but again, he also released right after Onslaught, which, to be honest, isn't the hardest defender, but he can certainly be frustrating. And 2023 wasn't the biggest year for defenders, not that I can remember at least. But we did have Kindred, Onslaught, and Photon. So that was, I mean, they were fairly spaced out. I mean, they were 3 months apart from each other. We also had Future Ammon at the beginning of the year, but that hasn't really come back to bite us until recently with the Heart of Fire. And even then, he's not the strongest defender anymore. So, but yeah, back to the 2024 champions. We started off strong with Bullseye. Then we have Dust, which has been phenomenal in recent metas. She still has a ton of value. She's still really annoying. Her triple immunities, I think it is, are just frustrating to deal with. Her glancing on the block, her sandstorm, her undexable SP2, which forces you to take block damage, her uncounterable SP1 unless you're using Tigera, but she's also very, very annoying. She can be, at least. Then, now I don't remember the exact order in which all these champions released, but we have characters like Arcade, which have a ton of defensive threats. Destroyer, super annoying. He released at the same time as Serpent. A lot of people don't use him because Serpent really overshadowed him, and his defensive asks are basically just don't intercept, which, considering that we haven't had a battlegrounds node for the last 6 months where we can block, uh, it's pretty damn annoying. But again, Serpent, this best champion in the game, super annoying to deal with. Uh, I'll talk more about him later on, but he is the worst on defense. Then we had Enchantress, which she was really, really hard to figure out at first, but after a while, she wasn't that bad. Again, she still has stand-up metas like Invade, where it's just complete luck. Um, and that really just kind of boils down to what it is. Just like a domino, the domino of the Mystic Glass. It's all just luck. But yeah, I mean, after that, there wasn't really too many. We had probably 5 straight months of no defenders. But then Deathless Thanos came out, and I think he's a fair defender. He's just a stall. He's not incredibly hard. He's just annoying and slow, and can just be monotonous to fight. But yeah, 2024 had some very, very difficult defenders, some very annoying defenders, and I think they've really kind of paved the way to what the game is going to become. We have Serpent with these RPG asks, and then we have Enchantress with these skill asks. And then we have combinations of both. Actually, no. Um, I'm gonna add a third class, just these boring, slow defenders like Arcade, Dust, Deathless Thanos, that sort of type. Then we go into 2025, and it's been pretty bad. We start off the year strong with, who was it? Gentle. Gentle comes in. He's supposed to be this super strong bullseye counter. Does a ton of damage. No one uses him, but he is a pain in the ass on defense, right? That unstoppable just it's so annoying. And like I said before, since we can't block for like the last six battlegrounds metas, it's like how am I supposed to how am I supposed to like get rid of the unstoppable? Well, there's the thing, you can't. Now again, there's certain champions like Crossbones where I think just turns it off. Silk has the slow. There's definitely counters to him, but again, he's just really annoying. He also has that reinforced passive, I think, which like cooks your critical damage. He's just annoying, but again, he's nowhere near as bad as some other defenders this year. Then I think, yeah, then the month after we get Zola, just I like Zola, but he is I don't have him yet, and he is really frustrating to fight on defense. The cowardice on the specials is really annoying, but again, he's not like the most challenging defender, but he does have like some skill requirements and some counter requirements. It's like a good in between for both, I think. Then we have Jean Grey the next month. Now Jean is actually super easy to fight on defense. I don't know why people are like struggling with her that much. Again, reverse controls can be annoying, but you know exactly when the reverse controls are coming. It's right after you break her shield, and then also she tells you during her special one when she gets it, and her special one is super easy to dex. You literally just have to dash back twice and then wait for the beam. So I don't think her defensive asks are too like wide, but again, if you have trouble with reverse controls and the exhaustions can be annoying, but overall she's not the worst. Then then we have Spider Woman, who just is like the next photon, right? You can't dex her special one, I think, when she gets her retribution passive on you or whatever it is. There's something that she puts on you. I don't fight her. At least not often. Not many people have her yet, but her undexable specials are super annoying. Which again, you kind of just have to hold your block and hope he doesn't throw it, and go to the special 2, which is a super easy dex. But again, we can't block. These battleground nodes are really killing me. But she's hard, but not the worst. Then we also have Lumitrix, I think the same month, and his defensive asks are really simple, but they're also really annoying. Again, the evade into the passive stun is hard hard to counter, right? Again, you need someone with Neuroshock so that you can hit into his invisibility, or need something that counters evade. Yeah, he's difficult, and not to mention that the special 2 is what puts the evade charge on him, which means that if you want to push him there, if you have like an evade counter, if you want to push him to special 2, there's a chance he just throws a special one anyways, and you're cooked. So yeah. Then then in May we have Yelena, which we don't know how she's going. She is incredibly annoying. I think people are learning how to fight her relatively quickly though. You just have to dex her special one and then hope you have someone that deals enough damage to get rid of her. Again, we have our counters, Jean Grey, Onslaught, Deadpool X-Force, and then there are some others like Guardian, I think, but they're gonna get nerfed after her bug fix comes out. I do think that they'll release some more like hard counters to her in the future, probably soon. But that's just how it is. And then the last month, Carolina Dean. I don't think she has any like crazy defensive like asks. I think her specials might be hard to dex. And that's kind of like the end of it. I think she can also glance your special attacks on defense. I'm not exactly sure that works. Again, she's not like fully out in the game, so we'll have to wait to see how that works out. And then we have Nico. Um, I'm not completely sure how she works on defense, but I know she's really annoying. I don't think you can dex against her, or else she'll just put like a trillion poisons on you and you die. So again, I think she'll have defensive uses, and she'll definitely be annoying on defense. But yeah, that's kind of it. Next month we have the Maker, which is I don't think it'll have any defensive uses. Well, maybe some, but like nothing crazy. And then High Evolutionary, which is supposed to be the next big bad defender. I think it's good that the Science class is finally getting another like useful defender though, because it's like Photon and then Spider Woman sometimes, and that's it. So I'm glad that we're gonna have a little bit more variety. But again, he could be incredibly horrible to fight. We don't know yet. He's not fully out yet. So yeah. I want to talk about the rate of implementation now. Well, I mean, I kind of have already, but it's just like we look at the 2024 champs, and it's like there's one every 2 to 3 months, right? And then like, well, most of them were in the first like 6 to 7 months, right? There was one like every month or two, and that was like annoying in itself, but that's just because there weren't that many counters, right? The game has grown, and by grown I mean 2024 released some absolutely busted champs, which kind of counter everything now, and 2025 is continuing on with that sentiment, and so it's just like a lot of these newer defenders just aren't as bad as they could have been because we just have a lot more champions that do a lot more things now, which makes them a lot easier to find counters for, right? Because with the Yelena, if she was released in 2024, um, like the only counter would be Onslaught, and even then, Onslaught's not like the best for her. He works fine, but again, he's not the greatest counter. But now we have Jean Grey and the buff Deadpool, so yeah, she's a lot easier now than she would have been a few months ago. But yeah, I mean, last year the rate of defenders was kind of bad in the first 2 months, but again, the defenders weren't like too horrid, right? I mean, Bullseye was really annoying, but other than that, I mean, he's not he's not a make or break, right? You can just ban him in battlegrounds, and you can just send someone who knows how to fight him in an alliance war. So he's not like the worst defender out there. And then we have like Dust, Arcade, Destroyer, and then we have Serpent, super annoying. But I think Kabam like realized that they were adding way too many like defenders in the game. It's just people didn't like it, and also with Serpent there was like a single counter to him, maybe two. Yeah, there's two counters to him in the entire game. So they realized they had to slow down. They had to release like some offensive champions, so, and that went well for pretty much the rest of the year until we got to Deathless Thanos. But again, Deathless Thanos is he's good offensively and he's good defensively, but he's not like the craziest defender. And then we get to 2025, and then everything is just like completely nuked. Every month there's someone new that does some crazy thing on defense. I mean, not crazy, but something that's difficult, or you have to work around, or you have to have a specific counter for. I think they're doing it just a bit too fast. I think for higher skill players, it's not too bad because you don't you just have to learn how to fight a new defender. But I feel like for a lot of other players that just don't have especially like content creators, right? They have access to the CCP. They can test these champions all they want, right? But for the rest of us, we either have to watch a video and then hopefully figure it out in game, or we have to use like a lower rank champion that we might get, which can be really frustrating, especially if you don't get it. Like with someone for Dark Phoenix, for example, right? There is literally no way to practice her unless you spent money on the Heart of Fire event, or you have access to the beta, right? No way other than just like fighting her in Alliance War or Battlegrounds, which in itself means that you're learning on the spot when you want to have that stuff down. But yeah, now let's talk about like the strength of these defenders. Again, I kind of already did that. We have a lot: Bullseye, Serpent, Enchantress, then Zola, Yelena, Dark Phoenix. All of these are fairly difficult champions to fight, right? At least for most people. And again, I think it's too much for the general audience, right? It's just too much to learn. There's too many champions you have to learn how to play to fight these characters, and it makes it difficult because it's hard and it's frustrating to fight most of these champions just in general, right? It is so incredibly annoying when Enchantress gets her untouchable spell and then you can't punish her heavy 6 times in a row. And then you're against the wall and you're just praying that you don't get clipped. And 30 seconds is off your timer, so you've immediately lost your Battlegrounds match. Right? And then Serpent, again, like I think most champions could probably get him down to his immortality, but then after that, they're cooked, right? Because then he's like fully ramped by that time. He does so much damage into your block with his specials. Uh, that immortality lasts for like what 12 seconds, and it heals him. It's just if you don't have a counter, right? Like if you don't have your Shoth or you don't have your Spiral, you don't have like even a White Tiger or your Nico. Even like I mean, everyone has Isophene, I think, but no one wants to use Isophene. No shade, of course. And again, she kind of needs to be awakened to take Serpent. I mean, it's just I think having that, especially this year, you need to have specific counters for Gentle, kind of for Zola. I mean, not really for Jean, but again, yeah, for Lumitrix, for Spider Woman, for Yelena, for Dark Phoenix, right? Like, it's frustrating for most people. And I just think that they're taking the game in a direction which I think in a long time will be good because having these characters be countered by only specific champions gives the game long-term relevance, right? Because again, if Dark Phoenix is only ever countered by like 12 champions, then she'll always be meta because she'll always have a place because there's only those 12 champions that counter her, and people need to run those 12 champions or else you're cooked. Um, and again, I think this kind of falls into there's certain skill asks and there's certain RPG asks of these defenders, right? Because when you have skill asks of a defender, it doesn't really give the defender long-term stability, right? And I mean this for like Yelena, for example. She's gonna have long-term long-term viability because she does have an RPG ask. You need Daunted to be like really good for her. But again, most champions can take her. If you're playing Alliance War, pretty much anyone can take her as long as you can dex a special one and do it in like a fairly like solid amount of time, right? Like Guardian, future Ant-Man probably can. Okoye might be able to. Um, but I mean, there's probably a decent amount of champions that could do her in like a fair enough amount of time, and even then, getting her out of elimination mode will probably only take 30 seconds. And when you have 5 minutes, that's just not all that long. And I think it's smart that Kabam are trying to bring long-term viability to the game. However, they are also actively trying to nuke their game as fast as possible. I talked a little bit in my State of the Game video. Um, again, if the goal is to make more money, and you're already making these events unplayable for anyone free to play and low spending, um, next year is going to be worse than this year in terms of spending and monetization. And so, again, your game is going to die pretty fast because free to play players and low spenders just aren't going to be able to play the game competitively. And at some point, they're going to get bored and move on. And once they move on, these high spenders just won't play the game because there's no one to play the game with. And so, yeah, that's a different issue. But again, I think it kind of translates to this, especially since we have to buy defenders and buy their counters. So, again, I think there does need to be a fair balance of skill versus RPG asks. Considering the fact that we are getting defenders more constantly, right? Like, because it's really annoying when the new defender, like that nobody can get, is just incredibly, like, overpowered, and like there's only two champions in the game, and one of them is like you can't get for free either, right? Or it's someone locked behind like a certain character in the Titan Crystal, right? Like if you needed, for example, like Bastion to counter a new defender, right? Now, obviously, you can get Bastion, but there's also going to be a lot of people that can't get Bastion. So if he's the only one in the game that can take that defender, like it's really, really annoying to get on the train and just say like, this is fine, this is good for the game, right? I do think the game needs that, but having that every single month is so frustrating, especially when people are essentially being asked to spend more money to get more counters for these champions, right? But I also think we can't just have every champion being a skill ask, right? Um, I can't come up with it from a sorry, I can't come up with one from the top of my head, but like again, if all you need to do is like intercept or heavy counter or do like any of those things against a defender to make them like harder to fight, well then that just becomes a bigger problem, right? It's better for the general community, even if like the skill ask is super high. Uh, the problem is it just doesn't have long term sustainability, right? Because after people figure out how to utilize these skill asks, the defender just becomes super easy to fight, and again, nobody's gonna like really want them. I mean, they can still be good, right? But they're just like much less viable on defense and much less like scoured for, right? I want to look at like the big one being Enchantress. Now, again, she does have RPG asks, but not huge ones, right? Like once people figure out how to like Dex her special one and then counter all of her spells, she kind of just became she was just there to kind of stall people and hopefully catch them with what whatever bullshit she spews at them, right? But again, people aren't like desperate for Enchantress anymore because she isn't like she doesn't need a specific counter, right? Anybody can do her as long as you get like semi decent luck and you know how to fight her. I think there does need to be a balance, like I said before, and right now they haven't done a good job at it because we're seeing a lot of RPG asks compared to skill defenders. Um, I think they're trying to utilize both of these aspects. I think we see it in like Yelena, for example, right? Because you need that daunted, but you also need to like be able to dex her SP1 and punish it and make sure she doesn't go into elimination mode too early and all of that, right? She has a mix of both asks. But yeah, I think first off they need to slow down just a bit on the defenders. Maybe just like once every 2 months have a super strong defender. And I do think that they need to incorporate some more defenders that need better skill asks, right? Because look at someone like Spider Woman or Lumitrix, you kind of just need someone that counters them. You look at Dark Phoenix, you look at Serpent, you look at Bullseye, you kind of just need someone that counters them, or else it's just going to go bad. All right, on to the next point of the video. I want to talk about nodes. I think the biggest problem with the influx of defenders is just the fact that there are nodes that are like either not impossible, but just insanely hard for them to like work on, right? We saw this with Enchantress with the unstoppable nodes, where she just goes unstoppable every now and then. It's hard to fight Enchantress while she's unstoppable because you need to hit her to get rid of her spells, right? And again, we see someone like Bullseye or Serpent, where like you have to get them to throw their specials for some reason, right? Like Matador, where they need to throw their specials for you to get specials, or any other like you need to get the opponent to throw their specials nodes, right? They're gonna be better on that, and it's just like I think the problem is these nodes just enhance these defenders so much that it becomes an even bigger challenge to fight them, and for most people, that's already super annoying because these defenders are already incredibly difficult to fight. And so adding on another layer of complexity and difficulty onto those defenders is just impossible for most people, right? And I think the problem is the game has advanced to a point where everything is going to have a node, right? Like, I don't mean just like 300 plus health, 150% attack, or whatever, but I mean every single fight you're going to take is going to have some relevant node to the fight where you have to bring a counter to the node and then further on bring a counter to the champion. And I think in general, that's fine. I think this is going to make Alliance War a lot better, but we're just not at that point yet where there's enough defenders and enough attackers for that to be the case, right? We're in this sort of middle point where it's just getting really, really annoying when Kabam releases a new defender and we just don't have an attacker to fight with them. That kind of like wraps it up with nodes. I just think it's annoying, and the nodes, I think they need to be smarter about which nodes they're putting in the game, right? Again, like I said with Battlegrounds, you can't block, and like 90% of these defenders, you have to block against them, or else you're cooked. So, I think they just need to be smarter about it, and be more careful about which nodes they're putting in the game, but even then, it's not the worst thing in the world. And now let's talk about the money defenders. All right, we have Dark Phoenix. You had to spend $1,000 to get her. It sucks, right? I had to spend like $150 just to get the 6-star version. Now, again, that is kind of my fault because I didn't grind my units. But again, even if I did, I still wouldn't have been able to get the 7-star without spending at least $200 or $300 more, which is really, really annoying. And even then, in the exact same event, you have Nick Fury, you have Future Ant-Man, maybe Apocalypse and I-Bomb. They both have like somewhat defensive like asks, but again, they're not too crazy on it. But again, you're just selling defenders, right? And I mean, it's not really any different than adding them like a pre-release bundle, but they're coming to the game for free, right? If you don't have Nick Fury, if you don't have Future Ant-Man, if you don't have Dark Phoenix, you have no clue when you're getting them. And it sucks to not have them because they're incredibly strong, they're incredibly relevant, and they're they're challenging. They're challenging. So when you have to fight them and your opponent doesn't, you already have a huge disadvantage. Not to mention, it sucks because a lot of the times that when you see people that have these champions, they likely spent to get them, right? Like again, you had to spend money to get 7-star Dark Phoenix unless you've been arena grinding for the last 2 years, haven't bought into any events, and you just thought, this is the event. This is where I spend my 40k units. Right here, right now. Like nobody's doing that, right? That's just unrealistic. And so it's already bad enough that people can buy these champions, but it's even worse because when you don't have these champions and you're fighting them, your opponent's already gonna have a larger roster than you because these events automatically give you extra rank resources, right? Like I'm pretty sure you got a rank 4 gem, 1 or 2 rank 4 gems from the Heart of Fire event. You got multiple rank 3 gems. You got Sig Stones. You got all this stuff. Not to mention, if you spend on the game, you're going to get more stuff anyways. So these people are going to have automatically larger rosters than you in the first place, and are going to have all these other crazy defenders, right? Like, and if you have Dark Phoenix, there's a good chance you probably have like Serpent and Armzola, and Yelena and Nico and Lumitrix and all of that, right? So it's already bad enough that these spenders have a huge advantage over these non-spenders. But again, that's Kabam has to do that so that it makes some level of money. But it's just so much worse because these free-to-play players have zero access to these champions when they are currently meta relevant and they're already at a huge disadvantage. Right? It'd be different if like they gave us a Heart of Fire crystal every now and then, like try your luck if you could like try to get Future Ant-Man or Nick Fury, or if you give us a selector for a piece of content, or even for like the tier 4 sales for July 4th, you like put a Heart of Fire selector in there. At least that would be better, but it's not. It's still not good. Now I'm going to end this video off kind of like a huge shift. I don't think it's that bad for the game, to be honest. That there's a huge influx of defenders, right? I think Grass made a good video about it with his Why Serpent Saved MCOC video. You guys should watch that. But again, the game needs defenders, or else it's just gonna be attackers fighting really bland champions with no asks, right? There's no fun in the game if Juggernaut just kills everything in 20 seconds, right? There has to be some level of defensive asks. And to keep these defensive asks relevant, they have to have some RPG asks. I think this is good for the long-term stability of the game, but I also think that it can be really annoying, especially in this middle state where there just aren't enough attackers where you can like viably counter these new defenders without like having to luck out on a Titan Crystal, for example. Um, it could also just be really bad for the game because if we just have infinite RPG defenders, then like there's no point in getting or wanting new champions, right? Because once you get the new champion, there's gonna be a new defender in like a month or two that's makes them already outdated, right? So I think there needs to be a good level of balance of RPG and skill defenders while also having uh, a steady increase of them as we go on through the game, so that the game doesn't stay stale and monotonous, and we have one or two champions that can do absolutely everything, right? I'm gonna leave it off there, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.